name is Ogle, and it's great to be here. I'm a visitor to Orange County. I used to live here, but I now live in San Diego. And tonight, and yesterday, and tomorrow, these kind of services will happen all over the city. And it's a kind of vigil. And it's wonderful to be here. And I was asked to give a kind of personal reflection or a testimony as to why what we're doing tonight is important. I grew up in Ireland. It was illegal to be gay in Ireland when I was a kid. And I felt called by God to the church, and I had to stay in the closet to be ordained in the Anglican church in Ireland. And I fell in love with another man at 21, and we were in a relationship of 7 years when a friend of mine thought that my boss knew that I was gay and that Frank and I were in a relationship. And we lived in a parish in Dublin. And immediately he went to the Archbishop of Dublin, and I was asked in no uncertain terms to leave. I was fired from my job. And in the church, you have a house that's provided, you lost your job, you lost your church, you lost your community. I was suspended from engaging with members of my parish. So Frank and I were really isolated, and this was in 1980. And like so many Irish gays and lesbians, we limped off to London to try and pull our lives together. And I'd heard about the Episcopal Church. And I'd heard that they were moving on issues like the ordination of women and issues around LGBT rights. And I was visiting here in the summer of 1982, and I met the president of Integrity. Integrity is our gay and lesbian support group in the Episcopal Church, at my first ever gay pride parade, and I thought I was in heaven. It was amazing. That first gay pride parade is awesome. And Integrity was looking for a priest to come to Los Angeles to begin a ministry with LGBT runaway and throwaway youth. And I had a background also as a teacher and a youth worker. And so I felt that this was a kind of call from God. And I moved here in November, actually, November 1982, 27 years ago, almost 20 years. And what was really important to me, in the Episcopal Church, just as the chalice is a very important symbol of unity, in the Episcopal Church, what's holding the chalice is important to us as the symbol of our unity. That everybody gathers around the table. Everybody is welcome at the table. We talked about the extension, the welcome of the ministry of all the baptized into all the sacraments. And for me, being fired from Dublin, I did not gather around that table for 2 years. And the Archbishop of Dublin said to me that he could never recommend me to work with children. And my only sin was that I was in a committed 7-year relationship. And that trauma meant that I didn't stand behind that table because I was frightened to. And the local Los Angeles chapter of Integrity met at St. John's Church. Some of you know it is now the Pro Cathedral. And on a weeknight, rather like tonight, about 20 people, the Integrity chapter gathered, and they asked me to say Mass for the first time in 2 years. And that was a profoundly frightening and a profoundly healing experience that I will never forget. And the community held the sacrament of ordination and the sacrament of Eucharist to welcome me to stand in the place where I was supposed to stand. That was 1982. And since then, I have been working in this wonderful Episcopal Church, in this wonderful American church, that has had many bumps in the road. About 5 years ago, I got a strange email from the now rector of the church in Dublin, who had heard I was made a canon by Los Angeles Diocese. He said, anytime you're in Dublin, come and preach, come and say Mass? Be great to see you. And I went, oh, you better, because my then boss is now the Archbishop of Dublin. I said, you better check with your boss to see if that's okay. A day or two later, I got an email from John Neal, who was my rector in Dublin, and it was a letter of apology. And he said, you know, if I had to do it again, I would do it very differently, because I have tremendous respect for members of the LGBT community. And we had carried around this horrible separation for 20 years. And so I made it my purpose